Hey again, in this video, we're going to talk about getting ready, how you can get ready for your online auction business, just going through some basics that we can take a look at and things that you're going to want to get prepared for. So, in this business, what we've seen is that we're constantly doing the 3 A's. We're assessing, we're adjusting, and we're adapting. Whether that be how we set up auctions, whether that be how we charge for auctions and our profitability, anything within this business or any business for that matter, you need to look at what's working and what's working for you and make adjustments based off of that. Always be looking at ways that you can cut costs, save time, be more efficient, more effective in order to scale your business and grow. That's what we're all looking for. So, it's always worth reminding people that the assessment, the adjustments, and adapting is vital to any business. So when we talk about the good news or getting ready, the good news is that you're here, and 80% of success is showing up. You've put your paperwork in, you're ready to join this network. So we're super excited that you are here and that you're getting ready right now. So don't be afraid if a lot of these things sound like they're piling up on you. It's going to happen. Take it slow, take it step by step. You're here, you're at step one. So let's move forward. Getting ready, technology needs, and self-assessment. The good news is primarily what you need to create auctions can all be done right here on your cell phone. You don't need to go out and buy some fancy equipment. Creating the actual auctions and manipulating and uploading photos, that's best done on a laptop or a desktop at this point. It just makes it a lot easier to operate and make quick edits and upload spreadsheets and all those things that we'll show you how to do. But as far as taking photos, the cell phone that you currently have is probably going to be good enough. In reality, if we have too big of images, if we're taking really high pixelated images, we have to downsize those anyway. So you don't need to go out and buy some DSLR camera for $1,500. The photos that you can take on your cell phone are going to be just fine, and the camera technology has gone a long ways. As far as other technology, what I want you to do is really assess where your abilities are, because if you're spending 5 hours to do a 1 hour job, say typing, that's not your forte, you're not fast at it. There's a ton of people out there with that skill set, and maybe you're best focusing on logistics, setting up auctions, putting things together and lotting them, taking the photos. But if you're spending 5 hours doing something that someone else can do for a half hour or 1 hour, think of where that time that you're spending could be spent. That could be out looking for more sellers, etc. So like I mentioned, the devices, the phones and cameras that you need, most of that can be done with your current cell phone. We do have a couple of affiliates that really like to use tablets, which is great. The reason that they do is when you're taking photos with a tablet, hold it up here, they're much larger when you just scroll back to take a look. When you're taking photos on your phone, they tend to be smaller, so it's hard to see all the details. That's one reason that people like to use an iPad or a Samsung tablet when they're taking photos. And the reason that's important is if you get, what you don't want to have happen is you take 300 photos on a job, you get home, you start looking through them, and the coloring's off, or the lighting's off, or they're blurry. So periodically, when you're taking photos out in the field or out on an auction, you're going to want to go do some spot checks to make sure that everything is looking like how you want it to look. Because the last thing you want to do is waste a whole day of photography to have to go back out there and do it. So iPads and Samsung tablets are great for that, just because you have that instant image of the pictures that you've just taken right there, and you can scroll back to see them real quickly. Storage, the images that you take will be uploaded into KBID, and they will live there. Right now we're on year number 5, and we still have photos from 2014, 2015. So that's not going to be a lifetime of storage, but for right now, there's plenty of storage where those images and your closed auctions will stay there. We'll probably have to truncate that at some point, but we'll let you know. So as far as storing your data, best practice, I would say until a month after your auction closes. Hold on to your photos, hold on to your descriptions if you're using a spreadsheet. They will be live on the KBID site, but don't just discard them as soon as you upload them, because you might need access to them again. Cloud storage, there's a number of options out there for cloud storage. You can use Apple, iCloud, I believe. I'm a big fan of Google Drive, Google Photos. And the reason that I like it is I use a Samsung phone, and when I get back to my house or the office and I have just taken new photos, it'll automatically upload those new photos into my Google Drive or Google Photos when I get to Wi-Fi. So, you know, in that case, I don't have to sync up my phone to my computer to transfer those photos to my actual desktop. So there's Dropbox out there. There's 100 different examples or systems that you can use. I think it's very handy, especially if you have more than one person working on an auction. You can share, you know, a Google Drive folder with someone. They can be working on the same auction at the same time. Costs are relatively cheap as well. Security and internet, you know, internet is going to be an important one. If you do have laggy or bad internet, if you're in a rural area, go through the auction process, create auctions, and see if that gives you any trouble. If it does, you may want to look at uploading your images and doing some of that work at a place that does have a better internet connection, because that will slow you down in the long run. KBID uses security measures on the site to make sure that, you know, the data that we're getting from buyers and from affiliates is secure, but there's always things that you can do yourself. You know, use good password, create new passwords every now and then. Some people will use a password protector where they can get a random 16-character password created. You know, whatever you can do to keep your login information private and for yourself. So those are just a few things on technology needs. There's not a ton that you need in this business to get up and running. You can always grow off of what you start with, but those are just a few key points that we want to run through with you. Next is sales tax. Now this could be a half-hour or 4-hour conversation on sales tax, but the biggest thing for you to know is that it is your responsibility to know what you're doing with your sales tax, when you need to charge, how much you need to charge, what those rates are. In the auction, you will put the sales tax rate in when you create the auction, and that is based on the location of the assets being sold. So if I do an auction in Minneapolis, it's going to be 7.275. If I do an auction in Duluth, it could be 8.275. Those numbers are probably wrong, but it's all based off of where the assets are located. So you're going to need to know how to look up those tax rates and what they are for the locations that you're doing auctions in, and you need to know, you know, what the general rules are as far as charging sales tax, when you have to charge sales tax, when you don't have to charge sales tax. When do you file? Are you filing monthly, quarterly, yearly? When is a buyer tax exempt? You know, one large misconception that some buyers have is they think if they're from Minnesota and they're buying something in Iowa, just because it's across state lines, they don't have to pay sales tax. Well, that's not the case. If they're picking it up in Iowa, Iowa sales tax would be applicable unless they have a tax exempt form in that state that they can fill out. If you're in Minnesota, look up the Minnesota ST3 form and read through it. That will explain when a buyer is tax exempt and give you some examples as well. That buyer should provide you with that document every time that they're claiming that they're tax exempt. And I would staple it right to the invoice and put it in your file. Keep a file of all your auctions and invoices. I believe for sales tax purposes, the audit trail could be 7 years. That might be wrong, but you know, whatever that time frame is, you need to keep those invoices, and you need to keep any tax exempt forms that you receive in the case that you're audited, in the case of a sales tax audit. We'll teach you how you can remove sales tax on an invoice. That does happen. You'll have buyers that are tax exempt and need that removed. Again, they'll provide you with the documentation that's required in your state. And you can remove that right on the spot. You can make notes and go back later and make sure that sales tax is removed. Do all items have sales tax? Do I always have to charge sales tax? No. Again, it changes within each state, but in Minnesota, clothing is non-taxable. Some food items are non-taxable. So we can mark those items as non-taxable on the auction level, if the entire auction is non-taxable, or on the item level. Say we have 50 lots and 10 of them are clothing. Well, those 10 lots would be non-taxable. The rest would be taxable based on the location of the sale. There are some other regulations that do not require you to charge sales tax. If it's a single seller estate auction or estate liquidation, there are some stipulations that you may not have to charge sales tax in those situations. Again, this is your responsibility to make sure that you're following the rules and regulations in your area. We've always erred on the side of caution when we were doing auctions because we didn't want to rely on rules that are somewhat unclear or that they can be perceived in different ways by different people. So just be very careful. Call who you need to call if it's the local government to get information and get an actual person telling you, yes, you can do this, or no, you can't do that. That would be my recommendation. So really get to know your local sales tax laws. Get to know when you need to charge, what you need to charge, when you can remove sales tax. We are not accountants. We are not lawyers, but we can answer some basic questions for you, but we're always going to defer you to the local authorities to make sure you're getting the right answers. Insurance, another fun topic. As you know, you're responsible for your own insurance, whether that be for the building that you have or just general liability. I can't really give you the exact formula of what you need as far as insurance because every business is different. You might have a location that houses two separate businesses. Well, the coverage from one business isn't necessarily going to cover the next. So you need to look into this with your agent, with someone who knows your situation so that they can give you the proper coverage to make sure that you're not at risk at all. There are some options if you're doing on-site auctions to get your company listed on the seller's insurance policy. So how you would do that is you would put it into your contract that for this auction, the seller will add XYZ auction company on a rider as being covered under this policy. You can do that. It's pretty commonly done. Some auctioneers won't do an auction until they're named as an insured or on a rider on a policy in the seller's building. And that can be a business, that can be a homeowner's policy as well. So we see a lot of that. I've talked to a couple insurance agencies, and one told me, 90% plus of the insurance issues that you're going to come into in this business would be solved by making sure that you're listed on the seller's insurance policy. Again, I'm not an agent. I can't speak to legalities of that, but some really good advice. And I would urge you again to seek professional opinions on this. There's a lot of options out there. You already have an insurance agent, most likely locally, that you work with. They're going to know your business better. They're going to know what their company can cover, what options are out there. If you're looking for some more auction industry specific companies, and I haven't worked with either of these other than buying a auctioneer's bond, but ermonroe.com is an outfit out of Pennsylvania, I believe. They issue auctioneer's bonds, and they also have insurance options as well. And then auctioneerinsurance.com, Larry Harb, I believe is his name, is the owner there, and he has been in the industry for many years, works with a lot of auctioneers across the country. So if you're looking for someone specific that has auction knowledge, those would be two recommendations for you to look at. Otherwise, you can always go out there shopping for other insurance companies to see if they can fit your needs. So there's a lot we can talk about there with insurance. I'm going to divert it back to you as it is your responsibility, but those are just some general nuggets on where you can look and what you need to look for. Getting ready, your first auction. I get this question a lot. What should I start with? How should I start my auction business? What's the first big bang I should come off with? And I do say for the first auction or two, I would go against my pyramid of what makes an auction successful a little bit and just say start on the small side, because you want to get comfortable with the process. You want to get familiar with the software. You want to ask a ton of questions for us. Let us know how your removals go, how the processing and all the invoicing went. Did items sell for more or less than what you expected? Getting comfortable with the process before you really go out there and start doing some of those bigger auctions with higher dollar items. You just want a little bit of that familiarity with yourself. You do have to learn to walk before you can run. So that would be my recommendation. You're free to do what you want, but a lot of people that I work with will start with 50 lots of items that they have personally, because they don't want to do any consignment right away, so they can get some auctions under their belt. And most, I've gotten good feedback from that, say that they enjoyed being able to go through the process without selling someone else's stuff first. What else can we do to get ready? I've seen some really good examples of affiliates just getting active and letting people know what they're doing. This is exciting. You're starting a new business, and how are people going to know what you're doing? A great way to do this is to create a press release. We do have a couple examples in our knowledge base that you can take. They're in Word documents, and you can edit those for your business. You can put your name in there. You can add to it. So what you would do with a press release is say, hey, we're open for business. This is what we're doing. We're joining KBID.com. They've been in business since the late 90s, early 2000s, all that stuff. And you'll send that to your local newspapers, news stations, and they're looking for stories. They're looking for local interest stories, and that would be one, most likely. I've seen a lot of new affiliates do this with great success. One recently got picked up by both their local paper, and they were in the Star Tribune, which is the major Minneapolis and Minnesota newspaper. So it was great to see, and I know that they directly had sellers over the last 6 months contact them because of what they saw in the newspaper about this new business and how they're helping sellers and clients in their area by offering this new service. So great way to get your name out there. Maybe you don't do it until you're 3 or 4 months into business, so you're ready for hopefully an onslaught of clients contacting you. But no one says you have to do it on day one. It's something that you can do when you're ready, and it's a great way to get the word out there and hopefully get a little bit of free promotion. The other way, get the word out, is your social media presence already. You're likely on Facebook, you're likely on Twitter or Instagram or some social media. And it's not just your immediate network that you might impact. 200 people on these platforms. You don't know their network and what their network is going through. So if you talk about doing estate liquidations for people that are moving or going through a death, and one of your contacts has someone in that situation in their network, well, there you go. Now you've just created a connection there that you normally wouldn't have. And that's all through the people that you already know, and really people that want to see you succeed, hopefully. And they're a lot of times are willing to help out. You got to be tactful with that. You don't want to be hitting people with your business posts daily on your personal pages, but it is a good place to get the word out about what you're doing. how you're helping people and the services that you can provide going forward. There's many other ways to get the word out there, but the Chamber of Commerce, they love when new businesses are opening up in their areas. So don't feel welcome to reach out to these Chamber of Commerce in your local area and tell them what you're doing. You know, I've seen some affiliates have gotten videos done with their Chamber of Commerce, ribbon cuttings, things like that, where they're excited to see new business open up in their area. And their main goal is to help new businesses and all businesses network with each other. And you'd be surprised at all the people that you can meet by getting involved in some of those things. So those are just a few tips on getting ready. You know, there's a lot we can do to get ready with a new business. I hope you're excited. I hope you're looking forward to what this business will bring you. I know we are. We see a ton of promise. If you have any questions on any of the things that we've gone through, first, you know, check with your professionals, your local accountants, CPAs, lawyers, and then certainly feel free to reach out to us as well. Thanks.